Well, good morning, everybody. First, let me thank you all for being present. And there are a lot of people standing with me and beside me and behind me this morning that I will acknowledge all by name very soon. But before I do that, I want to share why we are here. As I've explained to these faith leaders, you'll see standing here with me, there are a lot of parts of this job as mayor that are very hard. None are harder than when a child is harmed or hurt, or when a child is shot, or when a child is killed. And in 2020, since January, there have been too many young children, especially below the age of 10 in our city, that have been shot. It's been 124 days since 2-year-old Major Turner and his mother were shot in their home in Kimbrough Homes housing community on February 4th. Major Turner died from his injuries. It's been 101 days since 2-year-old boy was shot and injured in the 200 block of Boxwood Circle on February 27th. Fortunate news in that case is 2 people have been arrested. It's been 65 days ago, that a 5-year-old boy was among several shot and injured in Patton Park on East Sunday, April 4th. It's been 32 days ago that a 9-year-old boy was shot and injured in his home in the 4700 block of Avenue T on May 7th. And it was 21 days ago that 8-year-old girl was shot and injured in her car after her family, simply her mother being a good Samaritan, stopped to help another motorist on Warrior Road on May 18th. And it's been 17 days ago that a 5-year-old boy was shot and injured along with 2 adults in their car in the 8300 block of First Avenue North on May 22nd. Now, there are many, many things in this community that are right, and there are many other are wrong. And as I've expressed, this crosses a line when children are involved. There's a line that has been crossed when children are hurt. There's a line that has been crossed when children are shot. And there's definitely a line that has been crossed when children are killed, or a child is killed. And for all the things that are happening in our community, as adults, that we live here, we love this community, we believe in this community, none of us have the luxury to sit on the sideline and just think, oh, that's another shooting. The people you see standing here, and I imagine the people on the other end of these cameras, those are watching and viewing. The emotions that come to mind are upset and anger and hurt and sadness. But none of that weighs as heavy as the actual mothers and fathers and grandmothers and family members whose child has been shot. I've had a chance to speak to many of these parents, and as if they shared with me where this bullet entered their child and how this bullet moved through their child's body, and the strength that these parents had expressing that to me, and the strength in their voice, and at the same time the hurt and anger in their voice. I think it's important you hear from one of our parents. But before we do that, I want to explain also the men and women you see flanked here. These are faith leaders in our community. These are men and women who lead congregations. These are men and women who love this community, who were born and raised in this community, who are invested in this community, and believe the same thing I do, that a line is a line and it can't be crossed when children are harmed. And so they've stepped up, along with the Birmingham Housing Authority, David Northern, who is here and will speak in a minute, along with Crime Stoppers, Frank will speak in a minute, as well as the ACO Tobacco Firearm, ATF. There's been a considerable amount of resources raised in the amount of $125,000. And it all comes from the people you see here, and some were not able to make it here. And for the children that I've just shared their circumstances with, there's a $25,000 award apiece for anyone that has information that leads to an arrest, for these children that have been harmed, for these children that have been hurt, and for these children that have been shot. In a minute, we'll go into a little detail and allow them to speak, as well as a faith leader on the faith community's behalf. And I'm very grateful to each of you all. But before we do that, I want to recognize parents that are here. Ms. Katrina Grady, as well as Cortez Sewell. Their 8-year-old daughter was injured on Warrior Road. If you recall, this mother was a nurse, saw someone that she wanted to render aid. Never in a million years did she think that in doing that, and being a good Samaritan, and being a good citizen, and being a good neighbor, that her daughter would be shot. I want you all to hear what she has to say to the public and the community. Ms. Grady.
Good morning. My name is Katrina Grady, and my daughter was the daughter on Warrior Road that was struck by a bullet. I was there actually to render aid to a vehicle I seen that was stalled, and airbags were deployed. And my first instinct as a nursing assistant was to see what was going on, to make sure nobody was in the car, make sure nobody was hurt. As I approached the car, I noticed no one was in there. So at that time, I hear the neighbors hollering to get down, and my husband was telling me to get down as well. When I got down, a vehicle came up the street, started back shooting. So at that time, my child, my 8-year-old, was struck in the head, and also it struck her in the shoulder, which exited out the arm. Never in a million years would I expected something like that to happen. It make you scared to want to help anybody, Now it's getting to a point that any little thing I hear in my house late at night, I'm kind of shaking. I can hear the crackling on the floor. I'm scared. And I stay on the west side of town, where most of the gunshots I hear anyway. It's a lot going on right now. For 6 kids to get shot, we got to do better than that. Somebody knows who done this to my child. I want justice. It hurt me more than anything. She doesn't understand how bad that hurts me as a mother, because at that time when the doctors told me that if she had moved her head another kind of way, that it would have been another situation right now. It was a rifle bullet that hit my baby in the head. Okay, I think the bullet was about that long from what I recall. She's a blessed angel, both of them. I remember recalling when my little girl was in the car with her, she screamed and said, "Somebody shot my sister." I never would have wanted her to be in that kind of situation, neither one of them, not even my husband. And if my husband hadn't told me to get down, I probably would have been shot too as well, because they was aiming toward the car that I was going to render aid. If I hadn't got down, those bullets were they was coming straight towards me. I'm going to tell you now, there was nothing but God, okay? From my understanding, there are more occurrences that happen behind this shooting. It's more of like a retaliation type of thing that's going on, because there's 3 incidents right behind this that's related to the shooting that happened on Warrior Road. I want to tell the public, if anybody know anything, please speak up. It's kids involved. If that was your child, your children, I'm sure, as the song say, y'all be out for blood. Not saying that I am, but I'm the type, I want some kind of justice. Somebody needs to speak up if you see anything, because I'm sure the person who shot my child probably wasn't even knowing that it was a child in the car at the time. Even if it was a child, anybody, nobody need to be shot. And these cowards came right back around to make sure whoever was in that car was dead. Okay? This is pitiful. It's ridiculous. And I hate to say it, it's us. Okay? It's us. And Black Lives Matter, every life matter. But we got to do better than this. Us as one, as a whole. You know, we all bleed the same blood, and I feel like it need to be something done. And like I said, somebody seen it. Even the guys that got shot, I feel like they know more than they know. I feel like they know something. I don't know. In my heart, I just feel like they know who it is that came after them. So, if you're listening, if you're watching, please speak up. We want justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grady. Thank you for speaking from your heart and being vulnerable with us in the community. Mr. Sewell, thank you for being here. I did not know or expect your children to be present, or your daughter, but she is strong. And it's a moment for everybody to reflect. Ms. Grady said a lot of words, but the word that keeps jumping out the most, well, several words do, but the one that is ringing in my ears, coward. We have a lot of cowards out here in our community. And the thing about a coward is they'll keep shooting. And I think this community is at a reflection point. We are better than this. And there are way more good Samaritans and good citizens than there are a handful of people who continue reckless behavior. I am appealing to the community. I am appealing to the public. These faith leaders are appealing to the community as well with the funding and money they've raised to have someone come forward and get these shooters and cowards off our streets so no other children are harmed, no other children are shot, or no other child is killed. With that in mind, again, I told you present was Ash Leitner of the ATF, who's an assistant special agent in charge of the ATF here. David Northern, president and CEO of the Housing Authority of Birmingham District, and Frank Bearfield of Crime Stoppers. But before any of them speak, I have to acknowledge all the pastors and faith leaders that are involved. Please bear with me while I call and acknowledge their names. It's Pastor Thomas Beavers of the Star Church, Pastor Alfonso Bowen, Greater New Heights Missionary Baptist, Pastor John Catalone III, 6th Avenue Baptist, Reverend Kirk Clark of Sardis Missionary Baptist Church, Bishop Stephen Davis of Refresh Church, Pastor Aaron Frazier on behalf of Bishop Van Moody, the Worship Center, Pastor Stephen Green, More Than Conquerors Church, Reverend John King, Trinity Baptist, Bishop Jim Lowe Sr., and his dad is actually Jim Lowe, his son, of Guiding Light Church. Pastor Mike McClure Sr., Revelation Church Ministries. Pastor Mike McClure Jr., The Rock Church. Bishop Hawaski Moore, Mount Zion Cathedral. Pastor Deborah Blaylock, on behalf of Pastor Mike Moore, Faith Chapel. Pastor Mayo Soul, on behalf of Pastor Chris Hodges, Church of the Highlands. And Pastor Andre Sparks, 45th Street Baptist Church. Pastor Doug Taylor of Rebirth Christian Fellowship. And Pastor Michael Wesley, Greater Shallow Baptist Church. At this time, I want Pastor Thomas Beavers of the Star Church to say a word on behalf of the faith leaders who have taken the opportunity out of their time to not only be here today, taking from their coffers and share with the community and Crime Stoppers these resources raised, again, $125,000 total. But I want to express publicly, again, I'm grateful to each of you for your leadership, your heart, and your passion to this community. At this time, Pastor Beavers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Thomas Beavers, servant leader of the Star Church in Birmingham, Alabama. I want to begin by asking two questions. The first question is, do Black lives matter? The second question is, do Black lives matter to Black people? In the third grade, I learned how to add fractions, and I learned it's impossible to add fractions without a common denominator. You can't add 1/2 to 2/4 until you change 1/2 to 2/4. And add 2/4 to 2/4 to get 4/4, which equals 1 whole. But in order to add fractions, you have to have a common denominator. We, some of the faith leaders in Birmingham, Alabama, along with our mayor and elected officials and local government in Birmingham, Alabama, have assembled together today, not because of our differences, but because of what we have in common. And regardless of our ethnic background, economical background, our race, our gender, our creed, or even our color, the one thing that all of us have in common is that all of us are seeking the good of Birmingham, Alabama. And all of us are seeking the prosperity of Birmingham, Alabama. We understand that one of the major hindrances to the good and the prosperity of Birmingham, Alabama is crime. Crime is directly related to poverty. When people don't have what they need, they take it by any means necessary. And it's so easy for us to sit up here and point the finger at what people are not doing. But we understand that whenever you point one finger at somebody else, you have three fingers pointing back at yourself. How can we as a community point the finger at other people when we have a no snitch rule inside of our community and we refuse to speak up? As a consequence, we've assembled together because we are sick and tired of looking at the picture that we've been seeing. All of us as pastors know what it is to have to bury a child. Not necessarily our own child, but the child of a grieving mother. All of us know what it is to have that dreadful moment to get a phone call from a mother inside of our congregation whose child has been shot. And because the child has been shot, the mother is grieving not just for the time being, but grieving henceforth now and forevermore. Not even realizing that there are 5 stages to grief. First there's denial, then there's anger, then there's depression. After depression, there's bargaining, and then there's acceptance. But grief is not linear, it's circular. And so what happens when you deal with a grieving mother who's in stage number 3, and she thinks that because she's in stage number 3, she's on her way to stage number 4. When in actuality, the very next day, instead of her moving to stage 4, she finds herself right back in stage number 1. Because grief is not linear, but grief is circular. And today we stand together to declare forthrightly we're tired of looking at this picture. Yesterday I did something to my children that bothered me as a young child that my mom did to me. I came home from a long day of work. I laid inside of the bed after taking a hot shower. I turned on the television and I yelled all the way across the house to my child to come to my room. By the way that I yelled at my child, they thought that something was wrong, only for them to get to the room. And I said, will you please change the TV channel? They looked at me, and out of obedience, because I'm their father, they changed the station. But inside of their minds, they were really thinking, for the time that it took for me to walk all the way across the house to change the station, Dad, you could have did it yourself. And so many times, because we're tired of looking at the picture of crime, looking at the picture of grieving mothers, looking at the tears that they cry, looking at the fear inside of the hearts of the people that we pastor and serve inside of our community, we're tired of looking at this picture, and many of us are doing what I did to my children. We're waiting on somebody else to make the change. But the whole time that we're waiting on somebody else to make the change, we have the power to be the change that we want to see in Birmingham, Alabama. This is the reason that all of us have stepped up. This is the reason that all of us have chosen to be a part of this effort, because we understand that at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the day, that if real change is going to take place, it is not up to the President of the United States of America all by himself. It is not up to our mayor all by himself. It is not up to the city council. It is not up to the Board of Education all by themselves. But the Bible declares that if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven. I'll forgive their sins and I'll heal the land. You see the pain of this mother behind us. She represents one of many. Cupcakes are supposed to be sweet, but this is a very bittersweet moment. Let's be the change that we want to see. God bless.
Well, I got to come behind Pastor Beavers. But I have to take the time to correct something and add, so forgive me. My notes, I jumbled them up, and I failed to actually mention other pastors who are participating in this. I will find that note in a minute, but as I do, I want to call David Northern up of the Birmingham Housing Authority. If you recall, Major Turner was actually killed in one of our public housing sites. I believe Mr. Northern will remind us that probably happened within the first week of him being in office, and this has been very important to him. and the Housing Authority has participated in this fund towards this effort. Mr. Northern.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, pastors, for being here. The audience. Enough is enough. This family sitting here, a number of families out there, enough is enough. As the mayor said, I started officially February 1st. A great week, off to a great run, and it ended with Major Turner. That hurt my soul. That next week, my board of directors, myself, and our team at the Housing Authority sat down and said, we have to do better. We have to make a difference. And so we were charged with reworking our budget and focusing on some security efforts. And as a result, we added additional 496 video cameras throughout our 14 communities, 420 flood and aerial lights, and 64 license plate readers, just as a start. Now, I don't want to see anybody go to jail, but enough is enough. Going to the property that morning, seeing a scene with our property riddled with bullets, 2-year-old and his mom shot. 2-year-old passed. The mom had a baby the next week. She was pregnant. Enough is enough. So when the mayor reached out and asked, will a housing authority support these efforts with Crime Stoppers, we all have to take personal responsibility. We have to stop. We have to be a part of the change. We have to make a difference. So the Housing Authority dedicated $25,000 to those efforts to make sure that people may come up and give this information. Enough is enough. Another thing that we did, because it's about taking personal responsibility, and it takes us all as a community to do it together, is we changed our policies so that we can provide housing assistance to people that's willing to communicate and tell. Stop the no snitching. If you come forward and you work with local law enforcement, state's attorneys, we'll help relocate you. We'll help provide housing assistance, because everybody has to play their role. As I said before, I've been here a short time, but this is my community. Crime across this country is at a rise. But we, as the community of Birmingham, have to come together and decide to make a change. And I'm thankful that the board of the Housing Authority charged me with helping make that change along with my team members. And again, I just want to say thank you for allowing us to be a part of this press conference. I pray for you and your family, and I pray for all the families that's been injured. Thank you.
Never met a microphone that was too short. Want to thank the mayor for allowing me to be here today and represent Crime Stoppers. About a week ago, when the mayor called me and told me about his plan, which is an excellent plan, by the way, but his plan to increase the safety of all of our citizens, and he was going to raise $125,000, I thought to myself, this is not going to be quick. We got on a phone call 2 days later, a Zoom call, with all of the people here, and basically after about 30 minutes, the money was raised. It's incredible. He even hit me up for money. So he's done a great job in looking after the safety of all of our citizens. And we know that there are people out there that are aware of who perpetuated the crimes against children that we're talking about, that we're willing to pay these rewards for. All you have to do is pick up the phone and call Crime Stoppers. All of our tipsters are anonymous. We have no way to tell who they are. We provide that tip to law enforcement, and if it benefits law enforcement, then we provide a tax-free reward to them. So our board approves the rewards every week. So literally you could give a tip this week and get paid next week. But we know people know who did these things, and we really need them to make a phone call. Just make a difference. Everybody can make a difference. Thank you, Mayor.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we take any questions, this is what happens when you have too many notes. There are several faith leaders that I failed to acknowledge. I want to publicly apologize and take the time to acknowledge them, because there are a lot of faith leaders extremely honored who participated. In addition to the faith leaders' names and places of worship I called earlier, I would like to also include the Birmingham Metro Baptist Association participating in this. The Independent Presbyterian Church, also known as IPC, Church is participating in this, as well as Pastor Kelvin Bryan of Faith Walkers Church, Reverend Julie Conradi of Unitarian Universalist Church of Birmingham, as well as Rabbi Stephen Slater, Temple Bethel, Pastor Jamil Green on behalf of Pastor Chris Hodges. Earlier I said another associate pastor. I apologize, Pastor Gillian. As well as Vapor Thrift Store from the Church of the Highlands, Ashfaq Tafiq, Birmingham Islamic Society. He's going to kill me for mispronouncing his name. Pastor Doug Taylor, again of Rebirth Christian Baptist Church, and Reverend Pastor Brian Harper of First Baptist Graymont, along with Crime Stoppers and the Housing Authority and ATF. Thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of all the citizens of Birmingham. To the citizens of Birmingham, I look you right in your face and I simply say, help us help get these people off the street who have harmed children. With that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Mr. Mayor, that violence against children, that other violence against adults, we have two one is committing story. Are you aware of the Birmingham Police Department doing anything else different in order to basically get we're on the record basis with our position or getting a lot?
Yeah. I think the police, we have provided them with every resource we can as it relates to addressing gun violence in our city. I'd like to remind you, Alan, and everyone else under the sound of my voice, when we talk about gun violence, the strategy cannot be enforcement only. There are two other prongs that deal with reentry measures to make sure when our men and women come home from prison and or county jail or state that they can matriculate back into our community, have the resources they need to either get a job or a driver's license or whatever that is to make sure they don't fall back into the same line of work. In addition to prevention measures, this summer I know the Park and Rec Board will most likely be extending hours to provide safe havens to keep our children off the streets, as well as City of Birmingham partnering with the private sector for more employment and job opportunities. And so when we think about crime, it is not only to our police from an enforcement standpoint. Collectively as a community, the resources we have from prevention measures and reentry measures as well as enforcement, collectively, we're doing all we can. The biggest thing we need, everybody, is for people who have information to come forward. If there's shooters out here and they've shot someone and they feel they can get away with it, what do you think they're going to do again? They're going to keep shooting. This is a great start. And to have these men and women behind me stand up and say enough is enough, and we're not just going to talk about it, we're going to put our resources where our mouth is and say, please help us come forward. These resources exist for you to come forward. You'll be safe if you come forward. The more shooters we can get off the street, the better we can keep this city protected. As I told Ms. Grady, Ms. Grady has to talk to a detective about updates with her child's case. I imagine she's not pleased because she wants the person who shot her child off the street. But the truth is, our detectives, they work, and they exhaust themselves till they hit a wall. And there are two ways that they can solve this. They have evidence in the form of a camera or some device that caught what happened in real time, or a witness comes forward. Birmingham, Alabama has a host of people that know what's going on or have seen what's going on. We compel and entice and encourage those citizens in our community to come forward. We can decrease crime in our city.
It's been a week. Chief Smith, does he still have your full support? What is your reaction? Will he calling for a full-out vote on the city, helping a full-out vote on the department if they stand by the children?
So I want to make myself very clear, Alan. It's good to see you too, man. I hadn't seen any of y'all in person, actually. Y'all know I don't do any mess, no drama, right? And if the FOP president wants to talk, he has my cell number. We can talk about anything. Where I am with this, it's quite simple. Chief Patrick Smith has 100% of my support. He's my police chief, period. He's this community's police chief. And a handful of people in the FOP do not dictate who was the leader of this police department. He will continue to lead this department. He will continue to invest in the morale and resources of the officers, the men and women who are on the front line of this police department. And I will continue to encourage him to do everything he can to keep the citizens of Birmingham safe. What else you got?
Mayor, will you honor their request for a full body vote on city property at the precinct?
No. Well, let me explain that, Carol. It's quite simple. If the FOP has their own lodge and their own property and they can take the time to do a secret vote and then call you for you to submit a story to the public, then they can also, on their same property, for their members, do whatever they want. The City of Birmingham property, and the mayor's office will not be involved in their politics. What else you got?
A question about earlier today. You talked about $125,000 that you all have been able to raise. Can you go into details more about that plan? What are you all going to do with that money?
Yes. So, as Frank of Crime Stoppers have shared, the City of Birmingham has had a significant amount of children being shot. So the whole idea was, how can we find a way to get citizens and or witnesses to come forward to share information that may lead to arrest of who hurt these children. As stated, 6 children under the age of 10 have been shot. One of those 6 has been killed, and of those 6, there's only been 1 arrest. So there are 5 children who've been shot in this community under the age of 10, and their shooters are out there roaming the streets. The men and women you see behind me literally said, what can we do to support? I said we should raise money towards Crime Stoppers. They responded. We've raised $125,000. For the remaining 5 shootings that exist where the shooter is still out here on the street, there's a $25,000 reward for anyone, a piece that has information that leads to an arrest, to get these shooters off the street that have harmed these children.
Do you think you will eventually get people to respond to this call, given that there's so much money?
Yeah, we hope so. And let me explain that to everybody who can hear me. This is not a one-off. The faith leaders and ATF and Housing Authority and Crime Stoppers who you see here, this is not a matter of just having this public press conference and then we go out here and just mind our own business and tend to go back to our regular scheduled business or anything happen. There's an expectation that I have as a leader in this community. There's an expectation they have as leaders in this community, that people talk about this, that people promote that this exists, that people know these resources exist. Birmingham, we're quick to spread a rumor and it catches fire and everybody talks about it. We're quick to spread drama and we're quick to spread beef. Well, this is good news. Spread it, because it helps get criminals off the street. And I am reminded, as tough as this is, I'm about to say, I'm reminded of Cupcake McKinney that was kidnapped in our community and unfortunately killed. And I have a full, vivid recollection of full buy-in from the community, from faith leaders, from everyday citizens, from our business community, from the media, TV, print, radio, digital, everyone's in tune. This little girl's face, her name was in our minds and on our hearts and vivid in our eyes every single day until she was found. All of you all remember that. These children deserve our same attention, and we should give it to them as adults. And it's unacceptable if we don't.
And that's something completely separate from what we're talking about today, is just about drag racing. The police department just pushed out new numbers last night with 700 citations they've been giving out. Just your reaction to that and the plan for the city to handle this issue. It seems like it's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, so this is one of those things where it's not isolated to Birmingham. I talked to mayors across the nation who, I guess, post-coronavirus, the unfortunate style of coming out parties of people doing all type of things with their souped-up vehicles and cars. I've shared with Chief, hey, maybe we should create a zone or a space for these folks that is not in a residential area and let them do what they want. We're still talking about that. But in the meantime, until that exists or does not happen, our streets aren't for this type of style because it lends itself to someone possibly being hurt. And I think we're all aware of the young lady that was involved in the Arkadelphia accident that led to someone's death. And we don't necessarily know the circumstances around that. What we do know is this: it's a problem. And it may feel different to some folk who may not live in that area. But for those that do, we're doing everything we can to address it, and we will continue to. Alan.
Hey, we're just, come on, let's get back on topic. We gotta go. If you got anything else on this,
Okay, but part of this a lot of, how do you feel about it, putting back on $13 million back donation into the property?
Guess we need to talk to the legal department to find out.
You don't know if it's legal or not just yet.
No, sir. All right. Thank you, everybody.
if you have any questions.